Welcome everyone to begin the City Council work session for Monday, February 1st already, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Grace, can you take a roll call, please?
Councilman Scaringi,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strawn,
Present.
Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
President Rossinetti.
Present.
It's all 7 here.
Okay, great. So it looks like we have Chuck right up. Chuck, could you please tell us about RL 21-29?
This one is to transfer $18,000 to cover some bills in the which is a signals and combined shops electricity bill for 2020, and I'm transferring the money from the street lighting electricity that we're under budgeted on. I will say that there's some numbers here that we question whether or not we really that we have NYSEG checking them, but we have to pay it first, and then if it comes back that we're correct and there's some errors in there, then they'll give us a credit, but I do have to pay this first. That's why I'm asking for it to be expedited.
Okay, any questions?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead, Councilman Riley.
Hi, good evening, Chuck. How are you?
Good.
Good. So is this a typical occurrence to have an end of year bill carry over for such an amount? Okay.
Yes.
So commonly happens at the end of the year, and we'll be seeing this next year as well.
If we get it right, we won't, but in this case, we didn't.
Okay.
What I mean by right is,
Right.
like, you got to guess a little bit where the electricity bills are coming from.
Okay, so nothing, because of the pandemic, there wasn't a surge in our electricity use, which is why we're seeing this. Nothing happened out of the norm.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
You're welcome.
And we will move on to Mr. McGinnis, RL 21-30. Tell us a little bit about that.
Hey, how is everyone? This is just our standard operating agreement with Broome County in regards to the meal service at the senior center. No terms have changed, just an extension till December 31st this year.
Any questions?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam President. Hi, Pat. How are you?
Good, how about you?
Good, thank you. I was wondering if this is the typical course of action that we extend the agreement by 1 year. Do we do this every year?
So this is going to be the 3rd year of this agreement. We rewrote it 3 years ago to get the terms kind of up to date. It had been quite some time before then since it was updated. And it seems to be this is how the county now does it, is they extend it a year at a time.
Okay, and how much longer how many more years can we extend it? Is there a new contract on the horizon, or this is kind of how it's gonna go as long as this agreement is working for us?
As of right now, there's nothing new on the horizon. It's pretty favorable, I think, to us. It gets the meals to the senior citizens, which is the main purpose of it.
Okay, great. That's all my questions. Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilman Burns?
Thank you. Hi, Pat. How many meals are they doing over there now? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I did hear towards the beginning of we're doing drive-through right now with the center closed, that our meal count was actually up. We usually average roughly about 40 meals a day. So I heard it was up, but I don't have any actual data from the county on that.
How many could we do? Like if we were to try to advertise to people that might need the meals, could we go up that a lot? Would it cost us a lot of money to do that?
Would it cost us a cent? The county runs the program. They handle the contributions. Right now, the suggested contribution for meal is $3.25. How that works is you get an envelope and you put whatever you want in that envelope. It could be $0. It could be $3.25. Some people put more in, and that's put in a drop box, and the county handles it from there. We logistically have the capability. In the time I've been here, I've seen over 120 meals go out in a day.
Okay. So 40, we can definitely up it from 40. That doesn't sound very many. That doesn't sound like a lot of meals.
That's pretty average. It's probably on the higher end for the handful of senior centers. I think obviously it's weird with COVID right now, but us, Johnson City, and Endicott seem to be the big three hubs of putting the meals out on a daily basis. But yeah, 30 years ago it was 200 people every day for lunch. It's just changes over time with what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think the boomers know about it as much. That's what I think. There's more boomers than there was in that other generation. So anyway, we'll have that discussion another time. But thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem.
This is Councilwoman. Yes, Councilwoman Riley. I too have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Pat. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good, good. Well, we've heard that the seniors love this drive-through, and they look forward to the days when they are able to safely congregate again. So I'm happy to know that, that we are continuing in our same process and looking forward to other ways to strengthen that relationship. I do have a question though. This agreement, I know we're on the Exhibit G, it solely talks about cost for space, but what are we contributing or are we expending for this project?
For the meal program specifically?
Yes.
So technically the county handles all of that. We have Jessica Allen, who's the rec supervisor over there, who helps out with that as needed. The county also has an employee over there that handles the day-to-day logistics of taking the reservations and all that. In addition to that, though, that's all the county does there is just the meal program. Jessica runs the center from 8 to 4 with all of the programming and everything else that goes on there when we're open.
Okay, so there are really no funds tied to this agreement we're renewing.
Correct. The only thing it really talks about is kitchen equipment expenses, which when we rewrote it 3 years ago. So the city owns some of the kitchen equipment, like the stove, dishwasher, one of the fridges, and maybe one of the freezers. And then the county owns some of the other equipment in there. I believe a washer, dryer, another freezer, another fridge, a food warmer, serving table. So it's about split who owns what. But since they're the main users of the kitchen outside of a couple evening meals that caterers might use, when we rewrote this agreement 3 years ago, agreed. In the past, it had been the city repairs, city-owned equipment, and the county repairs, county-owned equipment. We now handle it on a equipment. So say, for example, the dishwasher breaks down, we would get an estimate to get it fixed, and then we ask the county to reimburse or split the costs with us.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's move on to Jeff Kruger and Chuck Shager, RL 21-28.
Jeff, why don't I start and then you can answer the questions, okay? Sometime last year, we replaced a pump in the, which line was that? Was that water or was that sewer, Jeff?
Water.
It was a water pump. And after placing the pump, Jeff went after NYSERDA to get a rebate, which took him about 6 or 7 months. He ended up getting, we got a check last week for $23,776.23. I think the right thing to do here is put that back into a capital line and increase our pump line so we can buy another pump with this 23,000 than just letting it go to a fund balance, and hopefully possibly down the road we can do the same thing, maybe not get 23,000 but maybe get something else from the NYSERDA grant. So if you have any questions, I guess you can throw it out to Jeff or.
Any questions?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam President. I have I guess a question for either Chuck or Jeff. If we accept this rebate, do we necessarily have to decide what we're going to do with it now? Or can we accept it and then later make that decision if we want to buy another pump or do whatever else we want with the money?
We can do whatever we really want with the money. I mean, it was given to the city for that purpose. When you put the money in, the right thing to do is to, instead of just putting it into a revenue line, which we'll do no matter what, but maybe increase a revenue line because it wasn't expected, and increase an expense line so we could spend that money again. I mean, if we wanted to wait for a while, you could. I don't know what the advantages of that.
Right. Okay. But that would have, regardless of what we do with it, that would have to be a separate piece of legislation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this right now is just to accept the money and then later on we can decide what we will do with it.
Well, technically what I'm doing right here is asking you to accept the money and increase the expense line.
I see. Okay.
It has to go somewhere because the revenue has to be offset by an equal expense.
Right, of course. But if we, let's say hypothetically, we were to just put it in the capital line, we could in the future take it out, like make a transfer to then buy another pump sometime in the future, right?
Technically, yes.
Okay. I see. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jeff and Chuck.
Already.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Go
It's
ahead,
not related
Councilwoman.
to this RL, but it is related to, you know what, I will email you because it ties into this, but it's not on this docket today. It's not on the agenda. So I'll email you, Chuck and Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Mr. Cram. Tell us about RL 21-31. Are you there?
Yep. Good evening.
Hi.
This is another RL for COVID CARES Act relief funding to small businesses. In this case, we only have one business that had everything in by the deadline for this council meeting, the shop at 219 Washington Street. So like the other ones, this is to authorize the city to make some direct payments for rent, utilities, insurance for the shop. So typically we have more like batches of them, but this was the only one from about 2 weeks ago until now that had all the paperwork in.
Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Jared. So looks like we're moving on to pending legislation. Grace, are you there?
Yes, I am. So we just have a few things on the pending. If you have any questions, if you want to look over them, if you have any questions, you can ask them. But those are all the ones that are pending from the last meeting.
No questions? Anything else before we wrap this up?
Madam President, I have a comment, please, if I could.
Councilman Scanlon, go ahead.
All right, if somebody recall, last week during the work session, Councilman Burns asked Jared if council people would have access to the Fin Institute. The Fin Institute obviously is doing the police reform, helping the city with that. I think we need to be clear on council what our role is in this. No individual is going to have access to the Fin Institute unless you go through a committee member. So our role, obviously, as the mayor laid out for us, is to approve what comes from him, which will come from the committee. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that, is what our role is in this process and where we're going. And that's all I got, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Scanlon. Anything else?
That's Joe Burns.
Councilman Burns?
On the police commission, if any members want Tom or I to bring something forward or discuss something, please get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Okay, motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.